Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, taking a fun and exciting video for you guys today, because we're going to be talking about the work in progress Street Fighter 3 Third Strike decomp as well as recomp on the PlayStation 2 based release. It's one of those things. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike was absolutely an amazing game when it came out. If you actually want to own original CPS3 hardware, you better bring your wallet and your patience, because the thing is absolutely one, expensive, and two, very delicate unless you mod the ever-loving hell out of it. So honestly, getting a decomp and recomp of one of the best Street Fighter games ever made, not with the word alpha in the title, at least in my opinion, is absolutely going to be something that is fun. But I want you to be aware that this is still a work in progress. It's not 100% complete, but you'd be hard pressed to tell from the footage today that it wasn't buttoned up. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. And just there is a demonstration that the entirety of the option system does work, so you're going to be able to kind of dial in whatever Street Fighter 3 experience you want. And big thanks to Andy D for helping with the capture on this one over the weekend. And before you go down into the comments and say, but Video Game Esoterica, there's better versions of Third Strike out there than the PlayStation 2 version, I 100% understand that, and I 100% acknowledge that. If I was going to play Street Fighter 3, I'd probably go straight to Final Burn Neo and play on Fightcade. But because this is based upon a decompilation of the source code of the PlayStation 2 original, it could become the de facto best way to play a game like this, because you can make changes to the underlying code in its recompilation to basically improve in areas where maybe the PlayStation 2 version lags slightly behind. And I did see on Twitter this is also getting some experimental rollback netcode, so hopefully sometime in the future, when this thing is more buttoned up, you'll have a robust online support system with lobbies where you can play with friends or even strangers all the way across the world, so long as you have a good ping rate. That is definitely an exciting future, and it's one of those things. PlayStation 2 recomps are definitely heating up. There's the PS2 recomp tool, which is still in development and not 100% useful yet, but we see so many things on the N64 decomp, recomp, and PC port side of things, and we even have Xbox 360 recomps going as well, so this is exciting news. And as far as actually playing Third Strike here, I will say it feels exactly like I remember it feeling. I played around with it over the weekend, but do be aware that I am not some sort of professional Third Strike player. So if you are and you have checked this one out, leave me a comment down below and you tell me what your thoughts are about it. The number one thing I try to feel for in any of these projects is the latency in the controls. If the frame timing is off, if you feel like you can't actually input combos because there's something about the latency that's giving you hell, it's not going to be a fun time. So at least at this point in time, Third Strike, the PS2 recomp, definitely feels like it's doing everything it needs to be a great version of the game. And that is always important. The feel of something, especially a fighting game, you have to have that be perfect or else it's not going to be worth playing. And that's something in all of these recomps to be seen. We don't really have anything that has been quote-unquote worse than the original game. And as far as the overall visual presentation here and the actual ability to draw PlayStation 2 graphics in the recomp, there's absolutely nothing that looks off in my opinion. The sprite animation is there, which is always stunning for Third Strike. All of the backgrounds and levels are intact, and there hasn't really been any sort of freezing, glitching, or otherwise crashing of this executable on PC. So that definitely is a very strong statement. It's just how good this version of the game already is, and again, it is something that isn't completely finished. Every once in a while I feel like there is a stray line of pixels in some of the sprites, but you actually have to freeze frame on those, and that could be something that is just inherent to the actual PlayStation 2 version of the game as well. Because it is one of those things, when I say this isn't quote-unquote the best version of Third Strike to play, if I'm going to play Third Strike, it's not one that I go towards either, so I am not 100% familiar with exactly the little intricacies and little weirdnesses that the PlayStation 2 version of the game might have. So if you do know some of those, leave me a comment down below and you tell me exactly how the PlayStation 2 version stacks up against other ports out there. But again, because it is a recomp, so many things can be changed, so many things could be added, and this could give Third Strike a new lease on life outside of something like Fightcade. Let's go to the first of two soundtrack samples, because Street Fighter 3 has amazing music, and we have to make sure that it sounds good coming out of the recomp, because if the music was screwed up, you wouldn't be having a fun time either. So go ahead and listen for 45 seconds, but come back because I got a lot more of the recomp to show you. But enjoy. That sounds exactly like Third Strike should sound to me, but you can leave a comment down below and you tell me if you heard anything in that soundtrack sample that would make you think it was doing anything other than what the actual PlayStation 2 original would do. Now that really is a lot of fun about these actual recomps, going through the new versions of the game and trying to pick out exactly what is working and what isn't working. And as far as what I saw here, that seemed to be an issue. Honestly, I am struggling to find anything whatsoever. I think the hardest part is finding the exact right version of Street Fighter 3 that the actual build tool will accept, because there's a lot of versions out there that it just spits back because it isn't the right version and the right checksum. And even though that's not something I'm going to be able to help you with here on the video, if you do try to build this one, you get that error, just keep trying to actually find the quote-unquote right version of Third Strike to be able to make this thing work. But the other fun part is, it is just Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, so you're going to have a metric crap ton of fun with this one. Now, if you're happy with something like Fightcade, would I move over to this version of the game? There really isn't any reason now, but again, this is an end development build, so it isn't finished. It is possible in the future I might recommend something like the Third Strike recomp over Fightcade, or even actual original CPS3 hardware. Because don't get me wrong, the CPS3 hardware is going to be the de facto best way to play something like any of these games, but it is also a very tricky piece of hardware to own. And I know that people are working on a CPS3 FPGA core, the Mr. FPGA side of things as well, so you may have quote-unquote real hardware without having to deal with a CPS3 arcade board in the future as well. And honestly, that is a fun time, and anything from PlayStation 2 getting decompiled and recompiled is a big deal as well, because think of the hundreds upon hundreds of amazing PlayStation 2 games, some that never actually left that console and got any enhanced ports that could come over as static recomps. You leave me a comment down below and you tell me what game would you love to see leave PlayStation 2 and come to PC with improvements. Now, interestingly, because obviously this is a pure 2D background and sprite game versus 3D, the internal running resolution bump isn't going to be all that dramatic. Something like Street Fighter 3 still looks incredible in 240p, whether you're scaling it or whether you're playing it on a CRT, or in my instance a PVM. So sometimes these recomps aren't going to be as visually impressive as the stuff we see on the N64 recomp side of things if they aren't using polygons. But if they were using polygons, it would be a noticeable difference. But again, if I didn't tell you this was an actual static recomp of Street Fighter 3, I just told you it was Street Fighter 3 footage from a PlayStation 2, I think everyone would believe that, and there wouldn't be any way to tell the differences. If there's been anything about this that you've seen that would make you think you could tell me what it is down below and give me a time code. I will go back and watch it one more time, because I only have 2 eyes, you guys have thousands of them, and you definitely help me out. But it's time for the next soundtrack sample. Go ahead and listen, hear the quality, and I'll be right back with more.
To the heat of battle, go for it.
So let's go down the checklist and talk about how good this recomp is doing right now. First, we're going to go into audio because it's just the thing you heard, and I would say it seems basically perfect in my ears. If there's any issues with the audio playback with the sound effects, I am just not hearing them. Then we'll move over to the visuals. All of the sprites are here. There really isn't any glitching in them. The backgrounds are appropriate. Every once in a while, like I said, I feel like I see a straight line of pixels in some of the sprites, but it is so hard to notice. You basically wouldn't actually be able to observe it if I didn't point it out. And as far as the controls and inputs are concerned, it feels exactly like you're just playing Street Fighter 3. If you get inputs in, it's because you knew how to do it. If you miss your input window, it's because you made a mistake, not because the game was fighting you on any of its input windows or had any latency. So honestly, this one feels like it's getting really close to the finish line. And don't forget, if this isn't your favorite PlayStation 2 game and you wish a different one got recomped, every single decomp and recomp project adds to the overall learned experience library, which does not exist and is imaginary when it comes to new developers coming in and making more projects. Because basically it seems like almost all the developers talk to each other. There's different discords where they go through all of the different improvements and other things they're working on. So if you're not a huge Third Strike fan, don't get disappointed, because you will see other PlayStation 2 recomps coming down the pipe, whether they are based upon a one-off decompilation like this, or if you actually use that PS2 recomp tool, which is still in development and hasn't really yielded an actual PS2 recomp as of yet. But the future in 2026 definitely looks bright when it comes to PS2 recomps, and Street Fighter 3 Third Strike definitely is leading the charge, at least is what we've seen in 2026. But again, you leave me a comment down below and you tell me if you could snap your fingers and make one PlayStation 2 game magically appear as a recomp, which one would it be? I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.